Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'll call the November 19th, 2019 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll continue with the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move the agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Okay. Move on to the Sheriff's Department. Mike, come on up.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Mike.
Morning.
Well, I have 4 different issues to bring in front of you this morning, so we're going to try to get it all done in one. The first one is the medical examiner contract. This is just to point out that Dr. McGee is going to be resigning his position. He's going to stay affiliated, but he's going to no longer be in charge. And Dr. Kelly Mills will now be assuming the role as the medical examiner for Ramsey County, of who we have contract. Nothing in the contract changes, none of the costs. It's just outlining the fact that instead of Dr. McGee, it will now be Dr. Kelly Mills. We've had a good relationship with that office. It's been an excellent opportunity for us to work with those. We would just ask the board that they approve the move to changing that.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. I was just looking at the numbers, and it says it's $2,000 and $1,000 and $250 a month. And then $300 an hour, including travel to and from Blue Earth County in order to provide testimony. Does that happen very often, that they provide testimony?
I can't remember the last time they testified, to be completely honest.
Okay. I was just curious.
I would love to tell you that, Pat, maybe that's something I cannot remember the last time.
It's been a couple years ago.
Okay.
But typically, if we have a grand jury or if we have another serious case, it was probably 3 years ago was the last time that they physically came down to testify.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank
But
you.
there's going to be other times that they will be retained as experts.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
The next one is the attached is the 2020 Violent Crime Enforcement Team Grant, and that's for the term of January 1, 2020 to December 2020. This is the old task force grant, is what they call it. It's got it's named. So this is the grant that we use to keep our task force in place. This is an annual grant, and it's been in place for many years. So they're asking for the approval of the board to continue with the task force grant.
Okay,
So moved.
second?
Second.
Any discussion?
How much has it increased?
Boy,
Mike, good have
Is it the
I
same?
don't think it hasn't
hasn't.
changed at all. It's the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is approved.
The next one is the JPA and the Minnesota River Valley Task Force and the state of Minnesota in reference to the anti-heroin task force program. And to be honest, I don't know a lot about this, but it's, and Pat, maybe because you're on the board, you can help. Board.
questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
It's to help with it's not the cleanup, but it's to help with.
Well, the overtime expenses associated, if there's a serious case or a death involving opioids, then this, basically, it's helping to backfill and pay what we're already doing anyway. So they can bill against this grant specifically for those types of cases and those types of investigations. So it's just available statewide, and this is their version.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it just opioids or is it any?
This is simply for the opiate death. So your overdose, if you have a heroin overdose or another sort of opioid overdose, we have a bunch of overtime attached to the follow-up to it that will help reimburse the cost. But it is specific to that.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that there's a finite pot of money that that you can apply to the state for.
I would assume so.
I'm just making that assumption, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
And the last is just to renew the contract with the food service DBA Summit, that was formerly Aviance, is to maintain the food service within the jail. It's went up about 3.2%. We've had really good luck with them. We had some issues a couple of years back. We sat down with them as a vendor and we said, look, we need to have some significant improvements here. They met all the needs that we had. They brought their major company exec in. We walked through from ground zero, the service. They've changed even how their managers within the facility. They've added better help. They've done a really significant job of improving the food and the food service in the jail. So this one, I would think I can really give you some input behind that I've had some involvement in, and they've done a nice job of fixing, and we'd like to maintain their service.
Perfect.
I'll move approval.
Second. Any discussion?
Yep.
Yes, go ahead.
It says Summit shall pay the client based on the number of meals served to the Nicollet County Jail and additional facilities. Is that Nicollet County people in our jail, or is it
Nope,
Nicollet
Nicollet
County?
Nicollet County doesn't
With
have a
us?
kitchen. So they have a service with, they have the food service with our vendor. They just cook it in our kitchen, and then we get paid so much for every meal that goes to Nicollet County.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good deal.
I never did. We were gonna try the food sometime, but I guess we never did.
I would put it towards a high school lunch.
Oh, okay.
Is how I would sum it up. I mean, there's some that you'll like, and then there's some that you'll go, it's not my favorite. But it's significantly improved over the course of the last couple of years, and it's changed our inmate population behavior because of the food's better, they're more satisfied also, and they've commented about it. So.
That's good.
Wonderful.
It's positive. Okay, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike?
Looks like Phil's up.
Good morning, Phil.
Morning, Phil.
Morning, Phil.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
Looks like you're getting us geared up for the year-end stuff with the action items.
That might be true, Commissioner. Yes. It's all about a ramp up. Yes.
Yep. What do you got for us?
Well, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I have a handful of action items that I'll run through for you here to start. The first in public health, Minnesota Department of Health. It's a Community Health Board annual Public Health Act funding, and what they do is have a blanket umbrella contract for 5 years running 2020 through 2024, and then they give us an annual award amount. In this case, it's $226,647, which is the same as 2019. So year over year, they'll just confirm what we're actually getting. And the term of the overall contract, again, is January 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2024. Second item, Children and Family Services. It's our Children's Mental Health Screening Grant. This is a renewal grant. The narrative just talks about how this screening is really to look for children who have not had a diagnostic assessment but may be in need of one. So both child welfare and juvenile justice staff can access these funds and do the screening and then determine if further assessment is needed. If so, some of the grant can be used to cover some of that cost and also cover some staff time to complete the data that goes with the grant. The grant's amount is $23,540, And that's based on a number of issues: the population, the number of child protection reports, and the number of screenings completed in the past years. Staff then provide quarterly reports to DHS, and the term, it says in here January 2nd, that is not correct, it's January 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. Child support, there's two pieces to this. The first one is a cooperative agreement. The second one is called a cooperative arrangement. As I was putting my board report together, I thought, they're the same title. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, they're not quite the same. They look the same, but they're different. So the first one is really an umbrella, again, for child support with the federal law for obtaining federal financial participation. You'll hear us talk about FFP. And so in order to do that, we need this umbrella contract with the feds. And the term of that overall contract is January 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2021. And then the companion part, the second part, is how we actually produce the services here, human services, along with the county attorney's office and the sheriff's department to do their respective pieces of the job in the courts and the service that the sheriff office provides to us. All parties then are reimbursed. Our overall budget annually is $140,000 a year. The term January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021. And then the final action item is about our Rule 25 contracts. We do contract out with area vendors to provide the chemical health assessments. They are based on qualifying limited income in order to not have to private pay. The rate is $155 per assessment. And what I did for the sake of time is to group the providers together. The first one, Journeys Towards Healing, you'll see is the only one that has a 1-year contract. All the other are two-year contracts. House of Hope has 2 working addresses in town, and so they list those both as identifying numbers for their business. Cato Project 3, Christian Family Solutions, and finally Alina out of Brown County. So those are our 6 different contracts that go with the Rule 25. And then our Brown County Evaluation Center contract is also listed under substance use disorders. This is our annual contract with Brown County Evaluation Center for detox and evaluation services. The per diem is the same at $430 per day, and the term is January 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. And we also have a transportation agreement with Mankato Department of Public Safety. This contract is used for in-city intoxicants that need transportation, 3% increase from $76.59 to $78.89 per hour, and also the mileage will be adjusted to the 2020 IRS rate. The term is January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, and those are the action items I have.
No question about that, Phil. Do we use them much? I know Detox provides transportation.
I would say less than we have in the past. Some of that is just our coordination, I think, with Yellow Line and using the crisis center more and all of that. So I think we've used that contract less. It's awfully nice to have that, and especially as you know, Commissioner Struenberg, that sometimes on homecoming and other times we do need that for overflow. So that's, I think, more the use of it.
And the Sheriff's Department also
Correct.
transports them?
Yes, and we do reimburse as well for those.
Perfect.
times.
Okay, very good. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions? I'm sorry, I could jump the gun a little bit on the questions, but
When you look at Minnesota Department of Health, Department of Human Services, Mental Health, do those grants cover our costs?
Well, they really do. I heard your previous question to the Sheriff's Office, Commissioner. I think it is a set amount of money, so we end up running out of that money.
Yep.
So no, they do not cover the cost. We try to spread that out over time because we know it's a very limited amount of funds. There's a lot of kids in need there.
Yep.
We found out this year that we have in the past used some of those resources for our children's mental health population, but they're saying they've already been diagnosed, so they actually are not the target population. So we're supposed to emphasize child protection and juvenile corrections in our target population.
Okay. The federal money, is that all reimbursed or
It's
not?
half is
Half,
what,
okay.
yep, the FFP is usually
Yep.
half. Oh, in child support, it's actually 2/3, is that
Okay.
right? Yeah, I'm sorry, that financial assistance is half, and then child support is 2/3 of reimbursement.
Okay. Thanks, I was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
No,
what all-
that's always good to ask this question.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Phil? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action items are approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, a couple of information items that are actually pretty straightforward. You've heard these before, but I do like to just show you the trend lines. Two areas that have been going up and up in disability services, so that would be the under 65 population, and then in public health we serve the over 65 population. So I just give you a few indicators on those two major areas of practice. As you know, our demographics are going up in really both of these areas, and so we continue to grow. The board's been very supportive of our caseload sizes and issues that we have around that, and we are trying to hopefully stabilize some of our trends. The first slide just talks about the public health side. So the managed care programs, what they do is contract with us to serve as their direct service agency in the community. So this is over 65, and our three providers currently are Blue Plus, Medica, and UCare. And so we cover those people that are under those managed care contracts, and then we serve the direct case management and assessment. There's also the second piece of that, which is that all residents age 65 or older can request assessment, and it's free of charge regardless of income. Once they are assessed, the issues about their assets will come into play. If they're under asset for that last bullet, we can provide the case management. That's part of our direct duty. If not, then they go either back to their provider or have to pay out of pocket if they had means. And then you'll just see a simple graphic here on the next slide. Assessments completed through 2019. As of October, we were at 882, so we'll exceed the amount that we were at last year, and a general strong trend of going up. Kelly has a note there under the title, an average of 250 to 300 clients turn over in any given year. So you look at that and it's a big volume, but it's also a lot of churn of people really moving out of the area, not meeting eligibility, or passing away. And so it's a large chunk of those caseloads that really kind of start over and have to get to know the individuals as we serve. And then taking a shift in the next slide to Lynette Ayers' area of disability services. So the distinction here is under 65. I will say that the data gets a little convoluted, and really I'm not going to go into the second box, but the first box is the DHS data, how they count. They combine some of the public health information into it. So that's what gets messy. And so what she's done, because she's like, that's not mine, here's mine. The second box is a breakout of more of her assessments that she's completed with her staff. But just to look at the trend line, I think that first box by DHS showing again a slight increase year over year. I will say, talk to the board about this over the years, that the initial assessment is still over 10 hours to complete. 10.14 hours is where it's at. And then the reassessments after you've had that initial one, still over 8 hours, 8.36 hours to complete that. So very convoluted. Again, back to the day when I was practicing, you could do a diagnostic assessment in a couple hours. You'd meet with somebody in your office and do therapy and diagnose them in 2 hours at the most, sometimes an hour and a half. So this is a very time-intensive process that we have going here. And then just to move to the last slide is, so those are the assessments pieces, and then you'll see a breakdown in the disability services. I am going to talk you through this just real briefly, is again a little bit confusing of the different waivered services. I always repeat this because it helped me understand that anytime we're talking about waivers, we're talking about people that would historically qualify to be in a nursing home. So if you had a disability, if you were at the age where you couldn't care for yourself, back in time, they would have qualified for nursing home level of care. So we're waiving that level of care and trying to do something more creative that's more community-based. So that's the working definition of waivers when you hear us talk about waivers. When it gets complicated, is you'll see there's lots of different kinds of waivers. I think that's probably less compelling as far as understanding the whole forest through the trees. But just to break it down a little bit, Lynette has those defined. DD is developmental disabilities, which is a high volume area. And then the next column, CCB, is combined the other three categories, CAC, CADI, and what used to be TBI, now called brain injury waiver. So those are combined, and about double what the DD population is, all three of those combined. And then you'll see non-waiver services that don't fit any of those. She does define that in some of the specifics that are included in the non-waivered areas, and then the total on the far right. Just one other note, caseload sizes. There was another error here. Is it says average caseload sizes in 2018, and the second to the last bullet was 69. But you'll see the range was 48 to 69. So I called Lynette this morning and said, I don't think the math works here. And it's supposed to be 60.9. So instead of 69, the average is 60.9, which is still very high. It's a very, very high caseload that we have. I know I've talked to the board and Bob about that we've been historically proud of the fact that we work at a pretty high clip, but we're at that place where it becomes difficult to cover all the bases. And so 60.9 is our average caseload in 2018. And that's what I had for you today.
Okay. Any questions for Phil?
Mr. Chair? On that 10.14 hours.
Yes.
Obviously not a one-time sitting.
Well, it
Can
really,
be, does it, what's the math of making that up?
Really great question, Commissioner. We do it both ways. I will say that sometimes it is a full grind through it in a full day, but more typically, especially with somebody that's either has some medical issues going on or just are at the point where they don't have that stamina, which a lot of the people that are served here don't, to your question, we do break it down into at least two different
Still
chunks.
2 long sessions.
Yeah, 2 long
Okay.
sessions, yes.
And
Great
even on the
question.
staff.
Right, oh, definitely. It really is just pouring through it, exactly right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm just curious about the brain injury waiver. What are we doing to keep them in the community?
Well, I think the same strategies take place as if there's things, we used to talk about wraparound is how I kind of came up, is if there's things that we can put in the home like PCA services, even to the point of 24/7 services, that's cheaper than facility-based care. So it's always, what do you compare it to? It's very expensive, and some of the budgets that we have through these waivers are extremely high, but they beat the price of a facility-based care per diem. So that's what you're always looking at. But it's as creative as you can imagine. It's accommodations in the physical home itself, accommodations with staff, any other kind of implements or things that could help. Sometimes, making sure that they do have access to a computer and are connected electronically, those types of things that maybe they would have had struggles with without some accommodation or adaptation.
Okay. Interesting. That one kind of bounced
Absolutely,
out at me. Yeah.
yes. And the severity, some people, of course, as you know, need such intensive medical attention that it really needs to be facility-based. But then we're still pretty active about saying, when do you stabilize and can we get you back home? Are there family members involved that want to be part of their care plan or not? Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Phil?
This is kind of off the subject, but it kind of... I know brain injury sometimes are eligible for SSI.
Right.
And is that different than what we would provide?
Yeah, so
I know it's different.
Right,
but-
they work together, and so what it is you are given a budget, and SSI payments usually look at what it takes to do the room and board kind of side of things. And then the extras are what the waiver would come in and say, what else do you need in lieu of nursing home? So SSI would normally go to the nursing facility and they just
Okay.
take that money plus whatever other assets might be there.
Okay.
But this way, what you do is you follow it. If it can be towards rent or a congregate living situation, SSI might go towards that, and then anything above that, all the accommodations we talked about, would come through the waiver. So those are added on top, try to make a package work for an individual. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Phil.
Thanks, Bill.
Have a great day, guys.
You too.
See you.
Um,
Okay. Mike, come on up. Thanks.
Morning, Michael.
Morning, Michael.
Commissioners. If you're following along, I have page 39 in your packet for today. And I'm actually going to just distribute, I know photos are sometimes worth 1,000 words, so this will just kind of remind you of the equipment that we're working with. That way you've got something to visually match along with what we're going with. So what we're doing today is we're trying to finalize a multi-month project here, actually multi-year, to get our equipment technology updated and replaced for the 2020 election cycle. And so what I'm bringing forward to you is what was budgeted in the 2019 capital budget to get authorization to replace our assisted voting technology, which is going to be the Omni ballot, which is that first box in that blue band there. That replaces the AutoMark, which is on the left, or the right side there, that orange picture there. We will be purchasing 34 of those. That matches the number of live precincts we have, plus some additionals. We're always required to have emergency supply on hand, including the equipment in case something would go down on election day. So we'd be looking at that purchase. We're also looking at upgrading our precinct tabulators, which is that middle image in that blue band. That is going to be replaced with what's now called the DS200. That product is from Elections Software and Services, ES&S, which is a leading manufacturer of equipment in the elections segment. And those are a digital scanner for our paper ballots. We're still continuing to use paper ballots, but this just allows them to scan both sides at one time, so it'll speed up our process for our voters. Which anecdotally, that is actually where our slow process is right now. Some of the other improvements we've made is it takes longer for that ballot to run through the machine. So we start getting a line during a busy election, like we expect for the presidential election in 2020, so we'll be able to move them through that process a little quicker. Then we're also looking at adding a central tabulator. That is what's in that green box. It's called the DS400 from that same ES&S vendor. That is a piece of technology that will allow us to handle our mail ballots and our absentee ballots more quickly because it scans it through kind of in a conveyor process and actually does some sorting for us rather than us doing that as a manual process. The only negative with that piece of equipment, as you can see, is it's designed for a righty, and I'm a left-handed person, so we'll have to get them to change the layout for that down the road. But that piece of equipment will actually, we demoed and used a piece very similar to that for 2018 on a rental agreement, and it was very effective for us to go through the thousands of ballots that we now process prior to election day. So allows us to reduce some of the staffing and remove some of the opportunity for human interaction with some of those ballots, which is a good thing. The last piece of technology that we'll be adding for the 2019 budget year for the 2020 election is some additional poll pads, which you folks are probably very familiar with. We're looking at adding to our current supply of 99 of those by adding another 25. What that will allow us to do is to expand those outside of the city of Mankato, Eagle Lake, and Lake Crystal. They were so well received in those areas that we're now hearing from some of our other small cities that they'd like to use those. And then we also have some townships now that actually have more registered voters than even some of those cities. So we're going to roll those out to even more of those locations, all to help us with our anticipated higher voter turnout that we're expecting for the elections that come up this year. So those are the items we're looking at purchasing. I've got a cost breakdown for you. Those costs are all covered either through the elections technology agreement that we have with our municipalities or through the capital budget that was set for 2019. We share costs with our municipalities. They provide an annual contribution to that technology fund, and then we match that and use that to help make the purchases that you have in front of you there. So you can see the breakdown of those purchases and where those funds would be coming from 2019. So I don't know if we have any questions about the technology, any questions about elections, or anything else. I'd be happy to answer them, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, The precinct tabulators, do you have to have the chip before the chips go in there? Is that how that works?
Yes, so that's designed with a secure USB, and so that USB gets locked into the device, and so that's activated for the election, and then that stays engaged in that device until it's returned to our office. So
I guess what I'm trying to understand is, I know in the past you had to bring the chips in and put them in the machine. Do these automatically transmit, or does the chip have to come in?
Okay, sorry, yeah, I misunderstood that. So
Well, I didn't explain it very well.
We've decided, I've made the decision at Blue Earth County level to not have results come to us electronically through like a modem or where they would send it back to us. So we do require that USB card to come back to our office. That gives us just one more measure of security that we can make sure that the results are not being adjusted in any way, shape, or form over an internet connection. We have the ability to match that USB results to the printed paper that our election judges are signing off of in the polling place. So yeah, we don't do an electronic transfer of that data until it's been verified in our office and sent securely to the state of Minnesota.
Are we picking the chips up, or are we waiting for them to bring them in?
We still have the election judges bringing them in. We are making some changes to that process administratively within our office to try to get some of that stuff coming back a little bit sooner with some
It's
of the
been taking
staffing
quite
that
a
we're
while.
doing in the polling place.
Yeah.
Yeah. We run a very, that's always a tough area for us because we want our election judges to take their time and do things right as they're closing down a polling place, but we also know folks are sitting at home waiting for results. We try to find a good balance of that, and we think we're going to do some staffing changes that will help us in that regard.
Because I know some counties have somebody go out and pick
Run
up
them
the
all,
chips.
yeah, exactly right, yeah. So that's something we could look at, but we're looking at making some polling place staffing changes that I think will help us in that regard too, just to get that coming in a little bit more timely.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, along that lines, if you have staff going out to pick up the chips, if they're not ready to be picked up yet, how does that create a problem? Or, I mean, because they're balancing at the precinct, correct? Or
Correct,
they're
yes.
lining something up.
Yeah, so to not go way in the weeds, but I can go as deep into this as you'd like, is so as the polls close, there is a obligation for our election judges to make sure that the number of people who have signed in or checked in electronically on the poll pads matches the number of ballots in the machine, or that there's a reason for that not matching.
Right.
Somebody votes an objection and chooses not to actually feed the ballot into the machine. So they do have a very kind of rigorous audit process that they can complete in the polling place before we're able to allow them to close the polls officially. And so we have to make sure that we wouldn't send somebody out sooner than that. And so
Because
that's
they
where
have to wait.
yeah, and so that's where we're looking at making sure that we have somebody who's actually in that polling place that has a little bit better handle on that audit process, so that we can make sure those get handled more timely and get the equipment and all of the results back to us in a more manageable time frame.
Doing the audit more efficiently.
Absolutely.
Because it certainly is more important to get the numbers right than it is to get it in time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to rush the service
Yeah.
just because somebody wants. I mean, I know how I was on election night, and then
Yeah.
where's that precinct coming in?
Yeah, we work.
I want to make sure that when it comes in, it's accurate.
Yeah, we work a really fine balance there, making sure that we've got good results as timely as we can, and that we've got the technology to support getting those results out to the public as soon as we can as well. So.
I think we all feel that way.
Yep.
We want the numbers correct.
Absolutely, we do.
I was just curious how it worked.
Yeah, there's actually a little bit of a divide in the elections community right now, where some folks are still reliant on that electronic transmission of the results, and that's just something I'm not comfortable with. I like to make sure that we've got a pretty clear chain of custody of that part of the process. And you can secure the transmission electronically, but having that card come back to us physically is just one more step that I feel is important to the integrity of our results.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? Let's go. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Looks like we're administrative services.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes of November 5th.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Next would be the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
Oh, move the bills?
Second.
Any discussion?
Let's see, I had one, and I think it's only because it's the size of it. It was Mathewitz for, I think, $2.3 million. And I know it's for County Road 1,
Yep.
probably for 14, but I thought it.
Right, there actually are 3 pieces to that. So County Road 1 is 1.2 million of that total. County Road 14 is 760,000. And County Road 4 box culvert is the remaining
I
316,000.
think it's important to let the public know what kind of money it costs to take care of our roads and bridges.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are approved.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. We just have a couple of informational items for you this morning. One is the employment of a probation officer that you met earlier today. And then we've also initiated recruitment to fill the roads maintenance supervisor in the Public Works Department.
Okay.
If there are no questions on that, the next item is item number 10 in your packet, which is the financial status report for October 31st. You'll see that our total revenues sit at about 69 million against expenditures of 87 million. Obviously, we have a large portion of our tax levy that will be showing up in the November report, which will close that gap significantly, but we will still likely remain in a deficit situation as planned. I also noticed that on the state and federal line, we're lagging a little bit behind there, and so I imagine we'll see that catch up a little bit as we get some of our quarterly reports submitted and the reimbursement that follows those. On the expenditure side, the public aid assistance is running a little higher than traditional, and so that's an area that we're running a little bit over budget on. Our contracts and fees line, which is a lot of our road projects flow through there. You'll see that that's catching up very quickly as we have finished out the construction season. And then I have seen, just as bills have been flowing through, we made some debt service payments just recently, so those will show up on the November report as well. In terms of the enterprise fund then, you'll see revenues are at 2.7 million against a $3.1 million expenditure. Again, we had some significant equipment purchases as well as a cell construction, and that's obviously leading to some of the deficit we're seeing in that enterprise fund. The second page then shows our cash balances. You'll see kind of in the top portion, the total available funds sits at about 41 million against a 6-month operating needs of, was that 56 million? Total county funds then are right at about 101 million at this point, or at the end of October anyway. Be happy to answer any questions the board might have on the financial status report.
Any questions for Bob?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Welcome.
Okay. Brings us to commissioners' reports on committees. Mark, you want to start?
Okay, November 5th after board meeting, had business after hours, went with, and Colleen was there. Went
Yep.
to see the Mayo, the pediatric care, and their building there, that's all pretty well complete. Then November 6th had another time with Colleen was the Million Cups at the I still want to call it the Hubbard Building, but the MSU's building downtown. God. That was, for me, that was really kind of neat because they had, I knew some of the people there that have a business and some that were startups and new business, and that was, they'd tell their story, and I was really glad. So I was glad that Commissioner Landcamer mentioned it and brought it to my attention. It was very worthwhile and is a good program, and keep it going. Has kind of a, sort of like a I don't want to say Hollywood, but like a show program. But it's just good. It's really it's real lively, and it's very informative and worthwhile for, I think, the presenters and then the people in the audience. November 6th, the department heads after that, same day. And then that evening, Commissioner Landcamer with the mapping, the areas, or the, what do you call it, I don't know, inequities with mapping for neighborhoods for housing and for and your deeds and so forth, the language, if it's racially insensitive, I guess, whatever, inequities, yeah. That was a study that, it's statewide, or
Hennepin County.
Hennepin County, I should say. Hennepin County, but it's, they look at a bunch different counties, and Blue Earth County has some. That's, so if you look at your deeds, and even like, for example, Skyline, we just have it's a covenants with a cooperative thing, but I didn't discover anything in ours, but you might have it where they have language yet from the segregation era, whatever, and cleaning that up, making people aware of it. So that was, and I guess that was Bacata Hayes. That was a big part of that with Diversity Council. Then November 7th, we had, and I saw a bunch of our county people and the commissioners was at the Jesse Beyer reception with GMG as the new head. And then they had a Maple intergovernmental meeting that night, and dealt with their various issues in the transportation area. Then November 8th, Friday, was I had a Gerberba joint meeting we did with the staff, which we have a couple times a year, and that was at the Army, the new Army, I want to call it. We had Veterans Day, and the within Mapleton, is I think a bunch of us were there, and that was the markers at Mankato and Mapleton, and with the Veterans Day, the Veterans Highway. That was cold, but outside anyway. But that was mostly in the school. That was a really neat place to be, and a recognition of the veterans of all wars. Then the 12th, we did have our RCF meeting, Kip and I, and then Rita had an advisory committee I went to on Wednesday, that 13th. That was kind of, Bob would be there, but they invited elected officials, and so that was kind of an update on what Rita's doing. Then Kip and I went to Micah then on that Wednesday the 13th, and with our Matt Mussman, our new executive director. He's getting into the groove a little bit, and he's got some other good qualities and a lot of experience, of course, in the legislative process, so that's going along. Then we have planning and zoning social workshop, or solar workshop that night, and that was, I think we got a lot accomplished then. Mayor and clerks the next evening at Madison Lake, and then last night was, I don't think I missed anything, but last night was for Partners for Affordable Housing, our Battle of the Bulls, or Chili Fest, and then we had with that Chili Fest was the with the Homeless Awareness Week coming up, so that we have every time at this time of the year for a week, and then we had new employees this morning, all of us. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Vance?
All right, well, November 5th was our last board meeting. November 6th, we had our department head meeting. November 7th, Mark and I met with a constituent out at Happy Chef, a very nice lady that has a history with human services, and she's worked in human services and Very positive meeting, wouldn't you say, Mark? And then that same day, I had a South Central Towards Zero Death meeting, and I had a Highway 169 Executive Board call-in that afternoon. November 11th, we had our Veterans Day events. I went down at the Veterans Memorial in the morning, and then down in Mapleton, where Kip gave an amazing speech. Riveted. But no, it was a very, very nice event. That memorial they have down there, both on the north and south end of Victory Drive, looks amazing. I like it. And then November 12th, me and Mark and Colleen were at the GMG Awards Hall of Fame. Very nice event.
Yeah.
And then the 13th, as you stated, we had our Planning and Zoning and County Board joint meeting on solar power. A lot was discussed, a lot was brought back and forth. I think, I think we'll come to an agreement on how we should have our ordinances. Probably a couple more meetings, but and a little compromising from both sides, because there's some of us that don't believe that there should be a lot of regulations, and there's some that believe that there should be a lot more. But county government compromises, and that's that, and we get the job done. November 15th, I had my Region 9 TAC, or Transportation Advisory Committee. We did not have enough members there to do any voting, because 5 of them were out combining. So we're trying to change some of the rules so that we could actually. It's an advisory committee anyway, and so we don't need a quorum, but we need we need a quorum to make that change. So, and then yesterday I drove up to St. Cloud for the Magic meeting, and then this morning we had our new employees, which I think we're always very proud to have good people come on board to Blue Earth County. That's all I have.
Good, thank you, Vance. Kip?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After our last board meeting, we had our department head meeting, got several good reports there. Made it to SWCD, they're wrapping up the projects for the year. It was a long season, but unfortunately wet, so they did get a lot of the plantings that they needed to get done, didn't get done. They're hoping for a good few days yet, but of course, just like everybody else, they're behind schedule with all the rain. The Veteran Services over in Mapleton was mentioned. It was a very nice program. The mayor did a great job with the presentation and a lot of good speakers. RCEF, we had our monthly board meeting and got things geared up for our grant and getting things going for that and some of our expectations from the staff. So we're getting some budget stuff put together and moving forward with that. Mark mentioned MICA. We got a good report from all of the staff there, and they're getting geared up. A little bit more discussion about the marijuana and the platform. We've approved 3 platform items, and we got 4 to do at the next meeting, which creates a conflict because of AMC. So we start at 1, and the AMC conference ends that same day. So we got to make sure we have a quorum at the MICA meeting to get that done. It was too hard to move it to a different day. So they're going to start at 2 and do some conference calls. So we'll have to see how that shakes out.
And it's in St. Cloud.
St.
So
Cloud opposed to
as
St.
opposed
Paul.
to St.
Yeah.
Paul,
So
yeah.
it's problematic, but they need to get it done because we got to get our platforms done. So, and then our planning and zoning meeting with the solar ordinance, and then the prioritization of our land use plan and some of the things we want to get done there. I thought was good discussion. Good to see that moving forward. Mayor's meeting had good attendance. Patty Woodruff's last mayor's meeting. She's
Sad.
retiring after 31 years, I think they said.
Wow.
Yeah.
But a great career. She's been around this organization as long as I have, and it's just fun to see her move on. But Amy did a great job talking about the census and how important that is, and trying to get people to get out and get that form filled out and help get that work done. And yesterday we had our MVAC full board meeting. Everything is going very well there. We had a busy meeting and some training on our duties and responsibilities as board members. Always good to get that reminder of what we are supposed to do as board members, because it is a very important role we play in these organizations. When you sit at the table, sometimes you forget that it is a very important piece. That's a big group. There's about 30 of us, but Amanda does a nice job just trying to keep us all up to date on what we should do. So that brings me up to the presentation this morning, which is always very, very fun. Brings me up to date, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kip. Jane?
Well, I won't repeat the ones that have been said already, except a couple comments on a couple of them. On the 6th, the mapping prejudice that Mark was at, I just think it was wonderful that Trey did such a great job articulating what happened at the meeting.
Yes, he did.
And then the Free Press also did an editorial which amplified the importance of it. So thank you, Trey, and the Free Press. That makes a huge difference when that happens. On the 8th, I had the Clean Energy Forum, which the Citizens Utility Board presented. I never knew what they did before. And they actually are a nonprofit that talk about education and energy options for people as we look at environmental issues. So it was extremely informative and interesting. Yesterday, I went to the Minnesota River Basin Ag Urban meeting that was at the Civic Center. It was kicked off by Laura Bishop, the MPCA commissioner, and Tom Peterson, the commissioner of agriculture. They had panels that talked about producers' issues and city issues. So it was well attended. I think there were, well, if you go to the Civic Center, that room was full. It was really, there were a lot of people there, a lot of interest. You had state people there, you had producers there, you had cities there. Bob Fox was there. And so you had a lot of people that are real interested in water quality and how that's going to work. They also talked about the Certainty Project, which is what I call it, where if you do certain environmental things on your land, you're exempt from any new regulations for 10 years. There's a process to apply. It was interesting. The guy at the table next to me said, well, I'm not going to apply for that because they might find out I'm doing something wrong and I don't want anybody knowing that. So that's really not the attitude you want. But it was well attended, and they do this annually, I guess. I didn't realize that. I wasn't there last year, but so I brought the flyer if anybody's interested as to what all happened. I also had a call yesterday with the Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs from NACO. The CR, continuing resolution, goes away as of the 21st of November. They think that the House and the Senate will pass continuing resolution till December 20th. They're not sure if the president will sign the one that expires on the 21st or what will all be in the continuing resolution for till December 20th, if that gets passed. They think it will pass, but you never know. Some of the things they are hoping is in this continuing resolution through the 20th is HAVA dollars, election dollars, and census. Right now, there isn't any money for the census in the continuing resolution, so they're hoping that they can get funding for the census for a year, because otherwise they just get farther and farther behind. And there's also it's not been passed yet, but Portman has a bill for a grant program for cybersecurity. So they think that will probably go through the House and the Senate. They don't know, but there is a bill out there about cybersecurity, and it'll go through Homeland Security, but it's a grant program. So just those are some of the issues that the National Association of Counties is looking at, and also in conjunction with the National League of Cities. So those partnerships are really important. I talked to Henches yesterday and told him I was sending the Cadillac tax to him, and they might want to send a letter to Congress supporting the National Association of Counties and NCSL. Also, last night I went to the Chinatown Hall, which was fascinating. It was all about international trade and trade with China. Denny Dotson was one of the presenters after a video that took about an hour talking about trade with China. But then Denny Dotson was a presenter, and I didn't realize this, but he's the United States representative to the World Foundry Organization. So he's traveling around the world working with trade and that type of thing. And then Dave Pressler he's the CEO of the Pork Producers. So it was extremely interesting, a lot of students there, a lot of diversity. And so many fabulous questions. So international trade's an issue. And they talked about tariffs, they talked about the impact of those. And Dave Pressler said that, I didn't realize this, that there are, in the swine industry, many other countries have some horrible diseases going on. Yeah. And so that there's China, yeah, 25% are about all that's left.
Wow.
And so, I hate to say it's an opportunity, but could be. So it was really interesting. And then this morning, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Colleen. I think pretty much everything that I was at has been mentioned. I did notice that the proposed tax assessments came out yesterday. Got a couple calls on that, but other than that, that's my report. So, anything else? Did you have something
Just
else?
one thing I wanted to mention, this Minnesota River Basin Ag and Urban Partnership Forum. Garrett and Julie were there from Planning and Zoning, and we also had both of our ditch managers there. So the people that actually do the difficult work and understand everything they were talking about, because I'm the first to admit I didn't.
Great, perfect.
So thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
If you're
Is
interested.
there anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.